The film opens to thunderous applause from the patrons of an American boxing club. Harry and Ron, two strong combatants, engage in a furious brawl. The audience cheers and yells with delight with every punch and dodge they make. In the middle of this intense environment, a determined young lady named Frankie steps out of the throng, her gaze concentrated on the battle that is taking place. Frankie waits anxiously as Harry wins the upper hand with deft maneuvers and cunning strategy. As Ron is knocked down hard by Harry's powerful strike, the audience lets forth a cheer. Elwood Dalton enters the ring as the cheers die down and the dust settles, bringing in a fresh opponent. Elwood takes up Harry's challenge with ease and confidence, creating a fresh sense of excitement. But as soon as Elwood shows his face, the atmosphere in the room changes dramatically. Harry, who was formerly so self-assured, is now experiencing some anxiety. Feeling unprepared to take on the threat Elwood poses, he leaves the ring without a struggle. The audience is left stunned and perplexed when Elwood unexpectedly emerges as the winner. A guy appears as he leaves the fight club with his pockets stuffed with prizes, accusing Elwood of being the cause of his misery. Elwood gently reprimands the assailant, who then runs away in terror, unfazed by the attack. Frankie strolls up to Elwood and offers to help. She says she's seen that he's got amazing combat abilities and she wants to recruit him. She shares the story of her own suffering, a charming Florida restaurant called Roadhouse that is being harassed mercilessly by neighborhood goons while being disregarded by the police. Elwood accepts to work together after being moved by her candor and piqued by her suggestion. As she treats to his wounds, she shows him the way to go so that his abilities may go beyond casual battles and lead to wealthy rewards. With Frankie as an ally, the scene is set for him to enter a world of bigger stakes and more difficult obstacles. She goes to Elwood and makes a sincere request, clearly distressed by the hostility that is affecting her eatery. She thinks that his combat prowess holds the key to bringing safety and tranquility back. She offers him a handsome monthly salary and suggests he become a bouncer. Particularly after a recent near-death encounter in a train accident, he finds himself intrigued to the concept. Though miraculously uninjured, he is disturbed and reconsiders the course of his life. Her proposition becomes suddenly more appealing to him as he considers making a new beginning. When he gets to Florida, he meets Kat, the kind and hospitable proprietor of a bookshop. His spirits are raised when Kat offers him a book that lists the top attractions in the city. It makes him feel at home in this unfamiliar setting. He starts to embrace the concept of starting again with renewed hope. His presence at the Roadhouse is a watershed moment for the business as well as for him personally. The lively restaurant delivers the feeling of camaraderie he has always desired with its club-like environment. Laura, the bartender, and James, a teenage fan who used to be a heavyweight boxing world champion, welcome him inside. Elwood gains Laura's and James' respect and affection by forging fast ties with them. Frankie watches him intently, maybe charmed by his presence and second-guessing her choice to bring him on board. But the tranquility is short-lived as Dell and his motorcycle gang upend the peaceful environment of the club. Tensions rise as a result of their hostile actions, and Dell starts to harass a female. James intervenes to protect her, but things become worse. Elwood calmly resolves to take the argument outside to be resolved. Elwood maintains his composure in the face of Dell's taunts and persistent hostility, alluding to potential repercussions for their possessions, particularly their bikes that are left outdoors. With courage, he charges into the conflict and a fight breaks out. Elwood shows courage and compassion throughout the altercation, making sure the wounded get the care they need. He meets Ellie, a nurse in the hospital, who wonders why he fights. He muses on his life as a combatant and the consequences of his deeds after their talk. Frankie, back at the Roadhouse, is moved by Elwood's bravery. She thinks his presence would bring the institution back to its former grandeur and assures him of a solid wage. She also provides lodging aboard a boat, but she warns that you must keep an eye out for crocodiles. Elwood becomes more at ease in his new job, and memories of his previous battles, particularly a significant one, come flooding back. Laura reveals that past bouncers quit because of problems with the bad people, but his dedication gives her fresh hope for things to go better. He starts to realize the possibility of atonement and an opportunity to really change things as he makes his way through his new existence. He sets off on a self-discovery quest with Frankie's trust and the encouragement of his new friends in the hopes of moving beyond his difficult past and creating a better future. His conversations with Kat in the calm of the bookshop highlight the challenges she has in running the company after her mother's death. The people in the community start to admire Elwood because of his genuine compassion and understanding, and they start to recognize him throughout town. Dell's group is dealing with the fallout from their activities at the Roadhouse. Ben, their commander, is not happy that they were unable to scare Elwood the way they had planned. Ben insists that his group act even more aggressively in order to demonstrate their toughness, even if Elwood is unwilling to fight back. Elwood's presence at the Roadhouse still has a good effect on the vibe. Together with James, he and Elwood effectively manage disturbances. Elwood's remarkable martial arts proficiency astounds patrons and further establishes his reputation as an accomplished bouncer. Beneath his calm facade, however, Elwood struggles with painful memories from his fighting days. He meets Ellie in a local restaurant one day while looking for a substantial breakfast. They greet one another and talk about the town's culinary fame as well as the local conflicts. Ellie issues a warning, telling him to avoid troublemakers. Tires that are screaming later in the night disturb him as he makes his way home from the Roadhouse. With the intention of hurting him, Del traps him in a harrowing vehicle pursuit. His instincts take over and he manages to barely avoid being hurt as Del's car crashes. But Del keeps going after him, and in a last-ditch effort, Elwood is struck by the fast-moving vehicle, which sends him flying into the river below. Breathless, he struggles against the stream and emerges exhausted and bruised. As he makes his way back to his boat, Del reappears with a pistol in hand, setting off yet another altercation. He overcomes Del in a fight for survival, throwing him into the sea where a crocodile is waiting to strike. The next day, still grieving over Del's death, Elwood muses on the risks in the neighborhood. He makes the decision to go, determined to put the problems behind him. Ben's messenger arrives shortly to let him know about a request for a meeting. A heated argument ensues when Elwood approaches the messenger because he is suspicious of his motivations. He comes to Frankie for advice, and although he is relieved that Del has been fired, Frankie is unable to provide any insight into Del's intentions. Ben becomes more and more determined to keep control of the Roadhouse as he becomes furious about Elwood's unwillingness to meet. His worries intensify when his father Gerald calls and raises the possibility of troubling developments. A villainous character by the name of Knox wreaks havoc and sets buildings on fire in another area of the town. Gerald gets in touch with Knox and gives him a difficult mission about the Roadhouse. Ellie asks Elwood to spend time with her while they seek comfort on a neighboring island in the middle of the mounting stress. She talks about the difficulties of negotiating the hazardous seas there as well as Del's passing. He tells her not to go too much into his background, being cautious about disclosing anything. She shocks him, however, when she says she's done some internet research and thinks he's qualified. As they spend private time together on the remote island and find comfort in each other's presence, their friendship becomes stronger. As Ben joins Knox at his place, Knox tells Ben about his plan to get rid of the bouncer at the Roadhouse. Ben begs for a chance to fix the problem since he is desperate to tackle it himself. Ellie's father, Sheriff Jim, shows up with a rifle and confronts Ellie as she says goodbye to Elwood at his boat. She tells Elwood that her father acquired his rich father's drug business after being alarmed by his activities and doubting his loyalty to Gerald and Ben's goals. As the threat grows, she tells Elwood to get out of there. Two evildoers approach Kat's bookshop covertly as night falls with the evil plan of burning it on fire. But Kat is very courageous and stands up for her shop with unshakable bravery. Aware of impending issues with Ben, Elwood heads back to the Roadhouse in the meanwhile. Ben keeps telling Elwood to get over it, but he's still determined to face his past. Elwood has horrible memories coming back throughout the heated conversation. Ben brings up his fighting background, reminding him of a disastrous UFC championship match that he lost alongside his buddy Jetway. Elwood is troubled with guilt and finds it difficult to accept the past. Ben chooses to dispatch Knox, his powerful enforcer, to deal with Elwood because of his unwillingness to back down. There's commotion at the Roadhouse as Knox and his gang cause damage. Elwood intervenes to break up the conflict, but Knox dares him to a bloody brawl. Elwood maintains his composure in a hard fist fight while being hurt. As the altercation extends outside the club, Elwood is experiencing discomfort from his injuries. At some point, he chooses to back down due to his injuries and the gravity of the situation. Frankie is devastated as she looks at the wreckage as the Roadhouse is left in ruins due to the incident. Elwood tells her, at a vulnerable moment, that he has been hiding things. He divulges Ben's evil scheme to commandeer the Roadhouse and utilize it for illegal activity. Frankie refuses to sell because he is determined to thwart Ben's plans. But Ben's mafia connections loom large, endangering their lives. Elwood seems unfazed by the dire situation and doesn't seem to be concerned about the risks that lie ahead. Elwood learns about Kat's business assault and her father's injuries at the bus station. Because of his bond with Kat, Ben realizes that his pals are responsible for the attack and is now motivated to act. Elwood runs into one of the henchmen at Ben's house. He eliminates the henchman quickly, starting a series of events. Elwood struggles to keep the people he loves safe by getting into a vicious fight with Ben and his surviving group. He chooses to take the illegal money in order to provide a diversion after learning about an impending mafia deal. Elwood considers the consequences of the past events and feels torn by the violence around him as mayhem breaks out. He takes a risky move since he is determined to put a stop to this and make sure his loved ones are secure. To divert attention from Ben's plots, he sets off a bomb aboard his yacht. Elwood battles valiantly to save Ellie from Ben's abduction. He finds Ellie after a terrifying struggle, but their boat starts to sink. He remains behind to divert their assailants while pleading with her to swim to safety. Ben, nevertheless, is able to reclaim Ellie and flee on a different boat. Elwood is being pursued by Knox and will eventually meet him. Elwood fights Knox valiantly in a vicious struggle for life, finally overwhelming him and throwing him overboard. Ben notices the battle and becomes interested. Ben crashes and launches on top of the Roadhouse, inflicting extensive damage just as Elwood and Ellie jump off. Elwood discovers the full scope of the destruction he has inflicted in the middle of the turmoil. Knox plans his retaliation against Elwood as he jumps to shore and smashes a truck into the Roadhouse on the opposite side. When Ben gives Knox the order to murder Elwood in the final confrontation, Knox responds by snapping Ben's neck and challenging Elwood to a furious duel. Elwood fights back resolutely in spite of his wounds, ultimately vanquishing Knox. Elwood reluctantly says goodbye to Jim and Ellie, knowing that Jim will handle everything. Frankie and her group gather at the Roadhouse as he leaves, resolved to repair and bring it back to its former splendor. At the bus station, Elwood greets Kat and tells her he will be back soon. As the bus leaves, Kat's father finds out that Elwood left them the cash trunk. The town starts to recover from the mayhem and violence that once engulfed it, as Elwood forges forth on a new course, full of optimism for a better future.